Hi, and welcome to Sunday with Mike. I got to tell you, our little Facebook group is growing and it's continuing to look great. If you haven't joined the Sunday with Mike group yet, we are holding a seat for you, and I hope you'll join us soon. Look in the description column for the link to the group. Last week, we talked about contracts. On today's show, we're going to discuss the differences between contracts and agreements, why you have to be careful when you use strobe lights at your event, some additional ways to save your USB jacks on your laptop, and an XLR signal generator that can really speed up troubleshooting when you need it. So grab a cup of coffee and join me. I'll be right back. You know, last week we kicked up some dust when we started talking about contracts. If you missed it, you need to pause this show and go back to number 43, last week's, and watch that one first. One of the comments was that I should call contracts agreements instead of contracts. The reason they stated in the comment was because it was a friendlier term. It occurred to me that many of you don't know that there is a legal difference between a contract and an agreement. This is like the discussion that many of you were having about whether you should call your deposit a deposit or whether you should call it a retainer. Those two phrases are interchangeable, and it's not a huge difference as far as the general public is concerned. But contracts and agreements are not interchangeable. Remember, I'm not a lawyer, and this isn't legal advice. This is simply a layman's comparison to make you aware of the differences. For starters, a contract normally requires witnesses to sign the document stating that they observe the parties signing the contract. There are lots of other differences, and state laws vary. So again, this is why you really need an attorney to look at this. But here are some of the basic differences between a contract and an agreement. An agreement is a promise or a set of promises. A contract is essentially agreement, a promise or a set of promises. I know those sound like they're almost the same, and that's why you need a lawyer to make the difference for you. Enforceability, an agreement may or may not be enforceable at law. This is the tricky part. Most of us are using agreements with our clients as DJs instead of contracts. And this is saying that it may not be enforceable, and that would be a point of contention for you. So, for example, social agreements are generally not enforceable, while business agreements are generally enforceable. And a contract is an agreement which is enforceable by law. The effects are an agreement is not always binding on the concerned parties, meaning you and your client. A contract is always concluded and binding on both parties. So the scope of all of this is that all agreements are not necessarily a contract, but all contracts are agreements. I know that's a lot of legal jargon, and again, this is why we need an attorney to help sort it all through. The only point that I'm trying to make is that when it comes to legal stuff, you really should leave this stuff to an attorney who is licensed to practice law in your state. It's not as easy as you think, where you can just make something up, hope it's legit and binding when you need it to, because you find yourself in court. I'll be right back.
DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
So I've been asked a few times over the years, is it true that strobe lights can cause a problem with some of your guests at your events? The short answer to this question is yes. Flashing lights of any kind can cause a problem for some people that have epileptic seizures. How quickly the flash rate is, how quickly are you flashing, has more to do with it than anything else. Several DJs have mentioned to me over the years that when they are doing elementary school events, the staff would question them about strobe lights and request that they do not use any strobes or super fast flashing lights. After doing some research on this topic, because it keeps coming up, we found a page that I think you should read. Just give yourself a few minutes, read this page. If you use strobe lights or flashing lights, it doesn't have to be a strobe, but if you use flashing lights at your show, you would benefit from reading this. Here's a brief summary of that page. For about 3% of the people with epilepsy, exposure to flashing lights at certain intensities or to certain visual patterns can trigger seizures. This condition is known as photosensitive epilepsy. Generally, flashing lights most likely to trigger seizures are between the frequency of 5 to 30 flashes per second. Now that's a pretty fast flash rate, so most dance lights are not going to cause a problem for you at all, but the faster they flash, the more of an issue this could become. It's a good read and it's a good website. It's epilepsyfoundation.com. And that link, it'll be posted down in the description column so that you can just click on it. It'll take you straight to the website to read the full article. I'll be right back. Wow, did we have fun with this topic last week? Saving your USB laptop jacks, part 2. You know, I really should have called this, How Do You Save Your Laptop Jacks? Because I forget that everybody thinks their setup is how everybody else sets up. And then they automatically condemn any ideas that come along because it doesn't work for them. So, you know, you have to think outside the box, and you have to remember that not everyone sets up the same way you do. For example, I had to set up a hard case where my laptop lived in that box 24/7. It never came out. So using a one-piece jack would have been no problem at all. But if you pack your laptop up every single time, then obviously the last show, the hub would have been a much better option for you. But I'm really surprised that nobody suggested the items that I'm going to cover today. What a lot of you did was assume that because everything else didn't work, this whole idea was terrible and nothing is going to work out for you. But all I'm trying to do is make you aware that the more you use your USB jacks, the more likely they are to wear out. So this is a problem that you need to think about and come up with your own solutions. I'm just trying to offer some possibilities. I've saved my absolute best suggestions for today's show, so I hope that these will help you even more than part 1 did. This is a PCM CIA card, and it's a little slot that is on the side of most computers. Again, your computer may not have this, but if it does, this is an awesome option because the card plugs into the laptop, and it allows you to have 2 or 3 extra USB jacks without losing or using the internal jacks at all. This is a much better solution because, yeah, you'll need to unplug this card after each event, but it's meant for this. It's a much bigger connector, and even if you wear it out, who cares, because all you have to do is buy another one. This one is my absolute favorite. The jacks are flush to the outside of your laptop. There's no extra part sticking out. So once you stick this thing in, it's like having built-in USB jacks, which would not require any removal whatsoever. So for me, this is a real solution and the one that I like the best out of all of the options that I've offered. Should I wear the jack out on this card? I just pop it out and buy a replacement. It's no big deal, and I don't have to send my laptop off for any jack replacements. Since these cards are inexpensive and readily available, this is the winner for me. If your laptop does not have a PCMCIA slot where this card would plug in, then you'll want to look at using an external hub as we discussed in last week's video. I'll be right back. Once upon a time, a guy that was closing up his production company stopped by and dropped off a box of odds and ends and said, "Hey, this is for you." One of the coolest tools that I've ever enjoyed was discovered inside of this little mystery box. It was made by the Shure company, you know, the same guys that have been making microphones forever. And it's been even more handy for me since we started using powered speakers, and I thought that you might enjoy this tool as well. The one that I have has long been replaced with a newer and better unit, but it's still made by Shure, looks pretty much the same, and available for purchase. Here's what it looks like. It's a long, skinny tube. It's got a power switch on the side of it, and in the end is an XLR connector. You plug the XLR connector into whatever you wish to test, turn on the device, and then as you turn up the volume on the speaker or the mixer, you'll start to hear a test tone. This works for microphones or line-in inputs, line level. You can plug this into a cable and then plug that cable into a speaker or a mixer and test the cable. It works great as a test tool when you just need a quick go, no-go tester. The unit is really small and it can fit easily in your tool case for some quick troubleshooting when something goes wrong. Don't get me wrong, I still love my cable tester and it has a place in my toolbox forever, but I haven't found anything that's faster than this tool for quick testing, go, no go for our rental stock when stuff gets returned. So that's going to be my show for today. I'll be back next week with all new topics to help you and your business. Be sure to give me your thoughts on today's show down in the comments section down below, and don't forget to give us a thumbs up if we've shared anything that you can use. If you want to get in touch with me, you can find me on Facebook, and that link is down in the description column, as well as the link to the new Facebook group for Sunday with Mike. So until next Sunday, my name is Mike Schnauter. Be safe, and thanks for watching.